Hello, everyone, and welcome to Children's Time. Today, we're going to tell a story about a fellow in the Bible who is very important to what we as Christians believe and how we as Christians lead our lives. Here are some facts about him. See if you know what his name is. This fellow lived 2,000 years ago. He traveled around from town to town advising people how to worship God and giving advice on the best ways to live with each other. Every painting or drawing I've ever seen of him pictures him with a long beard. He wore robes. He said many things that ended up in the Bible that we will still say today to remind ourselves of what's most important in life. So who is it? Did you say Jesus? Well, no, actually, that's not whom I had in mind. But this fellow was born before Jesus died, so the two of them lived at the same time. At first, he was not a follower of Jesus, but he became one sometime after Jesus died, and he did help lots of people understand Jesus. He was one of the founders of our religion, Christianity. Now, let's take a look at some of the other things about this fellow. Before he became a follower of Jesus, he was educated as a Pharisee. And here's a picture of some Pharisees. They were religious leaders who were experts in understanding the Holy Scripture of the Jewish tradition. And many Pharisees, but not all, thought that Jesus, who was a Jew, remember, got it all wrong. And when Jesus was becoming very popular and his following was growing, many Pharisees were afraid that the Jesus movement was messing things up. They saw Jesus as a threat. This fellow we're talking about today, he was one of those Pharisees who saw the Jesus movement as a threat. He took part in a campaign to find and punish followers of Jesus. And the way people punished followers of Jesus was sometimes very violent. Check this out. You can see what they're doing, right? Yeah, they're throwing stones at this guy. That was called persecution. And they did this to scare all followers of Jesus into leaving this new movement that many saw as a threat. But as it turns out, God did not like that way of treating people, and he let our fellow know it. The Bible tells the story of one day when this fellow was on his way to a city called Damascus, which still exists after all these years. He was blinded by an incredible light from the sky. Then he heard a voice saying, "Why do you persecute me?" And the voice was Jesus. Our fellow stayed blind for 3 days, and in those 3 days, he confessed his sin of persecuting others, and he repented. He changed his ways and became a follower of Jesus. He even changed his name. He gave up being a Pharisee, so he had to find another way of making a living, and he became a tent maker. And there he is with a couple of his fellow tent makers. That's our guy right there. And the woman you see in the picture here is Priscilla, who helped our fellow not only make tents, but also spread the word about Jesus. And with their tent making skills, they traveled around and made lots of tents for people, and they also helped form communities of followers of Jesus all over the place. They did a lot of walking and sailing around the Mediterranean in those days for quite a few years. And on his journeys, our fellow wrote lots of letters of encouragement and advice to communities that he had helped set up. Here he is, writing away. Some of those letters ended up in the Bible, and we read and study passages from them during Sunday worship in church. Remember church? Hey, here's a picture of a beautiful stained glass window in our church. And this happens to be the guy we're talking about today, the Pharisee who persecuted followers of Jesus and then who was blinded and repented, changing his ways, who became a tent maker and traveled far and wide to help communities of followers of Jesus, and who wrote lots of letters encouraging followers of Jesus to keep the faith and giving them ideas of how best to live their lives. Now do you know his name? You need another hint? Okay. Do you recognize this steeple? No? Okay. Check this out. How about now? Right, it's our church, St. Paul's, named after the fellow we've been talking about today, Paul. And today's Bible lesson, which Pastor Betty is preaching about, comes from Paul's letter to a group of followers of Jesus in the city of Rome. Here are what I think are the most important things in the Bible passage for today. Love one another with mutual affection. Bless those who persecute you. If your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they are thirsty, give them something to drink. And that from a sinful person who changed his ways and became a true follower of Jesus. Paul knew what he was talking about. How can you live the way he advises? Every interaction with another person, no matter who, can and should be out of love. And remember, you are loved by Jesus. And Jesus calls us, all of us, to love each other as he loves us.